Hey everybody, Cameron from Soergel's here. We're back up in the greenhouse, same greenhouse that we gave our last live class to. So I think I'll start with another tour before we get started while a couple more people are logging in here. And if you joined our seed starting class, I would like to show you the tray that we used for the seed starting class, that tray of basil that I seeded. Here it is. And sizing up pretty good, and actually probably going to transplant a lot of this tomorrow. So I think that class was mid to late March, so that's kind of where we're at. And we've got a lot of other seeds going here too, a lot of zinnias, marigolds. Yeah, now that it's April, it's a great time to seed most things. And even Braden today, when we talked about those super hot peppers last time, he transplanted all those today. And here they are, just getting a little bit bigger. Some other things happening in this greenhouse, at least. We have some big 1-gallon tomatoes growing up. A lot of hanging baskets, as you can see all around me. And some fuchsia hanging baskets. Those are my personal favorite. And we're trying to grow a lot more dahlias this year. I don't know if dahlias interest you or not, but here are some dahlias from Proven Winners. Some zinnias over on my other side, and a secret dahlia that actually really hasn't been released. It's not going into production until 2026. This Venti Pink Burst from Selecta, and they are getting some buds on there. They're going to be really nice. Oh, these are very pretty too, these fuchsia. Anyway, so welcome to the soil class, and thanks for joining us. We just want to go over a couple of the different soils that we offer, kind of what soil is. If you have any questions about your soil back at home and want to ask us about what you should do with it, or some practices that can help maybe revitalize your soil, or what to do with your soil at home, or just need some advice in where to go. That's kind of what we're here for. And so I'm here with my dad again, Randy.
Hello.
And you just want to go over kind of what soil is and what some fundamentals about soil.
I think the most important thing is people don't realize how important soil is. You can buy the plants, you can do that kind of stuff, and you may not be starting plants right now, but you're going to be transplanting them into pots or into the ground. And that soil is more important than you think. And everybody thinks, oh, it's just dirt. No, it's the key to the success of everything that you do. And it's kind of hard because sometimes you look at the price and say, oh, I don't want to spend that money. It's like putting windows in your house. You don't want to put them in the windows in your house, but it's something that you really need to do. So the soil, if you're going to do an investment in the plants and everything in your pots, is the most important thing. And one of the most important things I want to show you with this plant right here is you want good roots like this. And that's because the soil is really good and it needs drainage. And that's what something that we're going to go over, the soils that we have here and the drainage that is why it's important in making sure that the roots stay good. And the different soils that you're going to use are important also. We showed you the seed starting. If the pot is just this small, it's got to really have good drainage compared to a bigger pot. It still needs good drainage, but it can be a little bit heavier for nutrients and everything. So that's what's really important as far as doing that. You're going to go ahead and put the different soils are going to have different characteristics. And some people are going to ask, can I use the soil from last year? Well, soil breaks down. And so when it breaks down, you lose that airspace. And that airspace is what's really important. So if you're using last year's soils, you got to be careful that, sometimes you can get away a year. Getting 2 years or something, I probably wouldn't do it. But you sometimes can get disease and everything from the material rotting. And also that airspace is what's so very critical. The drainage is what is important. So I think Cameron's going to go over some of these different soils that we have and the advantages of them. And the drainage is probably one of the most important things. And then the pH is something that's important also. The pH of the soils are all where this is made. It's made in the Lancaster area. We have been to the facility. I have seen how specific they make mixing the right quantities, and they test this for pH, and every so many bags they test and send it to a lab to make sure you're getting the quality soil that we really want you to have. And so with pH being important, one thing that I learned that was kind of important was pH. If your pH is too low, okay, especially like in your yard or something like that, when your pH is too low, what happens is there's a lot of hydrogen ions in that soil when your pH is low. And so that hydrogen, all those hydrogen ions blocks the good nutrients that your plant can't get. So if your pH is 5 in your soil, then the nutrients that the plants get are all blocked by that hydrogen. So you raise your pH to be around 7 because those hydrogen ions just disappear and turn into water when you add lime and everything. And then that pH is there important that this plant can get the soil, or the soil can get the plant can get the nutrients. That's why these soils are so important, because they're balanced with the pH, that you're going to get the results that you want to get. So Cameron's going to go over some of these with you to tell you a little bit of the difference and why we like them and like this company. And it's really, the soil is more important.
So I'll just build on that a little bit. Because regardless of which soil you use, and if you're going to use some soil from last year, or if you buy from us or from another company, if you're not sure, the best standard that you can do is to test your soil. There's a couple of different ways that you can get your soil tested. We offer a Penn State soil test kit. You basically buy a little pouch, fill out a sheet, give a soil sample, and you send it out to the lab. And within some time, they'll send you back some results. We can help you analyze those results. It will show you deficiencies, your pH, and depending on which kit you buy, will give you nitrogen readings and some other nutrient readings of the soil that you have. So Penn State's a good option. Then there's Logan Labs in Ohio too. So there's multiple options for testing your soil. But again, if you're buying a bagged soil, it has been tested, and you don't necessarily need to buy a bag and then test it. So the soils that we offer, I would say kind of our two flagships are these siblings here, the blue and the red bag for simplicity's sake, but bumper crop through Master Nursery. And these are extremely good soils, especially for the price point that you would pay for them. The red bag would be better for, it's medium to heavyweight, so it's a lot better for trees, shrubs, something that's going in the ground that doesn't necessarily need as good of drainage. And the blue bag is a little bit of a lighter mix, so light to medium weight, has a little bit more perlite in it, better aeration, better drainage. So that's going to be better for containers. And even if you were to hold one in each hand, anybody would be able to recognize just how one is a little bit lighter, fluffier, maybe better for seeding or small pots or even containers on your patio, where if you're doing some transplanting with trees or shrubs or perennials, the red bag is more preferred for that. Now, as I go through all these soils, you have to realize that if you use a different bag than it's advertised as, it is not going to be a huge issue. As long as you're still using good soils, especially we really like Coast of Maine, which is what makes the bumper crop. And I've got some others to show you. These are somewhat interchangeable. You don't have to be super bogged down and, oh, well, I planted my petunias with a heavier weight soil. The petunias will still probably do great. It's just, if you have the option to kind of fine tune it, we're here to help offer you a little bit more guidance in giving you the best outcome by starting off with the best soil, with the best foundation. So those two are our most popular soils that we sell by far. All the other ones that I'll show you are a little bit more honed in to certain practices in the garden, or certain practices that you'd like to advance further with. So if you're a big veggie gardener, or you're looking for more organic matter in your soils, we have a composted manure blend, cow manure, and then even a lobster compost blend, which has little pieces of crustacean meal, very high in calcium. Sometimes you can actually see very small little particles of lobster shells or little lobster claw, because it is composted lobster. And the chitin in it and the calcium that's in those shells is really helpful for vegetables such as tomatoes or peppers, especially if you're trying to grow tomatoes and you have a lot of blossom end rot issues in the past. Starting off with a lot of calcium in your soil from the get-go is going to help kind of eliminate those issues that you run into further on. We also have a raised bed mix, and this is kind of a mix between the red bag and the green bag. So also really good, a little bit heavier weight, great in raised beds or for veggie gardening. And so this bag is really good because it's a little bit larger size. And if you're trying to set up a raised bed, it gives you a little bit more volume for the cost so that you're able to fill your bed up because you may need quite a bit of bags. Costa Maine also offers something called a Stonington Blend Growers Mix. This is kind of the probably the top tier soil that we offer. It has really good drainage, mycorrhizae in it, and it also has a lot more nitrogen in it. So depending on what you're growing at home, if you need something with a little bit extra charge in it with some more nutrient, then the Growers Mix really good, and it's going to hold aeration a little bit better than anything because the perlite and the amendments inside of it hold up a little bit longer. So it's a little bit more expensive, but again, depending on what you're growing, it may be worth the money for you. So those are kind of the flagship outdoor bags that we carry. However, inside the garden center, again, we have a lot of different types of soil. Let's say you're a big orchid fan. We have recently expanded our orchid collection from one of our employees, Jenna, who's done an amazing job. And orchids may intimidate you, and you might want something like this that has a little bit larger pieces of perlite or pumice and some chunkier bark. And this is an orchid mix that is more specific for extreme drainage of an orchid, or something like a cactus and succulent blend, again, has really good drainage for things that you really don't want to overwater. Again, a lot of these are interchangeable and you don't need to get super bogged down on which one that you want. There's a houseplant soil as well. But again, if you come in and talk to us, we're going to be able to help steer you in whichever direction you need. So sometimes you have your soil and you get to the middle of the year, and as plants start to eat the nutrients that are in the soil, and they start to deplete the soil of its nutrients and its charge that you buy originally out of the bag, amending your soil is going to be really important, especially as you get into the hotter, warmer months of the year. As plants are growing more rapidly and they're putting on more vegetative growth, they are eating more out of the soil. So they really need a little bit of an extra boost. And you're always able to fertilize with some sort of water-soluble fertilizer that you mix up and just water it in. However, a little bit more of an organic approach to kind of let the soil speak for itself and organically hold a larger charge is to amend your soil. And so there are tons of amendments that you can buy that are organic that will help give your vegetables or whatever you're growing a little bit of an extra boost. This is from Espoma. This is called Garden Tone. They make a lot of different types of amendments that are organic that you put onto the top of your soil that break down slowly and feed your soil over time. So this is kind of an all-around fertilizer. It's 3-4-4, and a quick little fertilizer lesson if you don't know. Most fertilizers are predominantly 3 nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And those numbers, 3-4-4, are a ratio or percentage of how much of those nutrients are in that fertilizer. Plants need a lot more nutrients than just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. There's a slew of micronutrients such as calcium, sulfur, copper, iron, zinc that they also need. And so by buying a lot of these organic amendments, you're able to help feed the soil these micronutrients at the same time without just giving it a Miracle Grow water soluble that's just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So as an example for some of those micronutrients, here's a product that I really like from Build a Soil, a company out of Colorado. This is glacial rock dust. So this is literally rocks that were mined from an old glacier that have been ground up and powderized And these are a great form of those micronutrients that you can add into your soil that the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium fertilizers may not give you, but you may need some of the iron and the copper and the molybdenum and some of the other micronutrients. This is something that you're able to put on top of the soil and let it break down slowly and help with a lot of the micronutrient issues in your soil. I even have mustard seed meal and worm castings. Worm castings are a great organic additive that will help add your organic matter into your soil to help your nutrient retention. And as I talk about worm castings, I would say a little hack, or maybe quite a big hack about gardening, is I think that the usage of worms in your garden or your containers is a really underutilized practice. And the reason being, when you think about out in nature, you have trees, shrubs, plants. Underneath the soil, there are millions of worms. There are different types of worms too. The red wiggler worm is the composting worm. And if you compost at home, you may know this, but the red wigglers are the worms that sit close to the top subsurface of the soil. And what they do, they actually eat these amendments. They consume the amendment, they poop it out as a worm casting, and in result, give the plants a form of organic matter that the plants are more easily able to accept. And so if you put down some of these amendments, sure, they'll break down over time, but the usage of the worms are going to help expedite that process and convert a lot of these nutrients and amendments into a form that the plants are able to eat. In addition to that, worms are great for aeration. They're constantly burrowing and tunneling through the root structure of the plants. And so they're also adding a great source of aeration and oxygen to the soil that you can't necessarily get otherwise. So I would suggest for you this year to try some worms. And it sounds silly, but you buy them online. There's a distributor called Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, and they sell worms, and they're not that expensive. You can get 500 for like $20, and they double every 6 months or so. They will reproduce, and so you end up with a lot of worms. And all you need in a container is just a pinch, or you can put a lot more in there. They're kind of like fish in regards to a goldfish will only grow to the size of the aquarium or the container that it's living in. The worms will only populate to a certain amount that are the container size. So you will never put too many in, and it will always benefit you to have worms, because I'm telling you, they will help your nutrient retention in your soil more than you would expect and more than you would know. So I would suggest going to Uncle Jim's Worm Farm, especially if you have some raised beds and you're doing some veggie gardening. Use it in your flowers too. We actually have a worm farm. Maybe at the end of this video, we could walk down there and show the worm farm. That we don't sell them, but we collect these worm castings, and we use these for compost tea. And we spray and water our plants with this organic matter because it's so nutrient rich and helps the plants later on. Two other really important additives, perlite and vermiculite. You're probably familiar, if you know a little bit about soil at least. These are great for water or aeration and to help with soil compaction. And vermiculite is a mineral that's mined and used for also water retention. And chances are, when you were to look into some soil and you see some of these gold flakes, that's the vermiculite. And then the white little stones are the perlite. They also make pumice stone, which we sell too. Pumice stone is volcanic rock. Perlite is derived from volcanic rock too, but the pumice stone isn't going to break down quite as quickly, so it will last a bit longer. And it is just a bunch of little stones that are peppered around in your soil. What else? You want to speak? Do you want to say something?
Oops. get past the video here. One of the things too that being older, we always heard about people taking and putting gravel or clay pots at the bottom of their pot when they were doing it. And the reason for that is because when older people would do their pots, they would put the gravel and stuff in the bottom, which the soil then, and maybe they went out to the garden and got soil that did not have drainage, and they would put that in there. And since the gravel or pots were below this, the water had to drain because there was like an air space down here that the water had to drain out. The good thing is all of these soils that we have, they have been formulated that you don't have to worry about putting gravel or something, because the drainage has been one of the most important things that they have put in there. So that's one of the things I just wanted to point out as to why the bag soils are so good, because you don't have to worry about drainage like you used to have to.
And I see a comment from Merritt. Thanks, Merritt. Do you recommend doing them in outdoor pots too? I assume I missed that at first. If that's regarding the worms, then yes, I would recommend maybe not in your houseplants inside, because you may not want worms crawling around inside, but outside, I would say any pot that you've got, definitely you can put the worms into. Can you give any other tips real quick while I...
Yeah, it's basically ask us questions. You don't have to be afraid, and when you're doing this stuff, if you have a large area, how can we do it in steps? How can we come up with what we can do to make it work for you? Raised beds is one of the ways that you get good drainage. If you have a raised bed outside for your vegetable gardens, they give you the good drainage and everything like that. So that's one of the things that's important, is just ask us, email us. My email is randysoergel@gmail. Cameron's is Cameron@Soergels. And any of our staff is here to help you by answering the questions and everything that you have. But the soil is a key to success.
So before I take you down to see the worm farm, Merritt says, haha, no, I meant outdoor flower pots. Yes, definitely. Yes, I would definitely recommend them in the outdoor flower pots. A few of the issues that you could come within your soil. And again, when we talked about the overwatering a few moments ago, I just want to kind of expand on the good drainage and what can happen if you don't have good drainage, and especially if you are using soil from a previous year. The best way to tell if your soil is starting to turn in the opposite direction that you may want it is honestly by the smell. If you notice that your soil is starting to smell like a pond or dirty pond water, that's an indicator of anaerobic conditions where there's lack of oxygen in there. That smell is harboring a lot of bad bacteria that are potentially reversing these efforts that you're trying to put towards your plants. So when you have those conditions and you're harboring anaerobic bacteria, that's a great indication that you need to probably replace your soil, do something to get some oxygen in there, let it dry out completely, and then maybe starting over, because that will reverse a lot of the nitrogen that you're trying to put into your pots. Some other things that can happen in soil, which I've actually had firsthand issues with, are pests and insects. There are root aphids. Thrips breed and have multiple life stages into the soil. So monitoring and looking in the soil and making sure that you don't have any larval stages of fungus gnats. I'm sure a lot of us have had fungus gnats at some point, and it's definitely worth monitoring your soil so that if you start to see these kind of things, then you're able to start thinking about changing the soil out or adding some aeration into it. So I'll take you down and show you the worm farm. If anybody has any other questions, I would be able to answer those. I'm going to walk outside of the greenhouse. All right, and here's our worm farm here. And you can see we're feeding them some kale and some broccoli. And they might be hiding a little bit. So let me see if we can dig some out. There we go. There's some in here. Here's wiggling around. So this down in the soil is very rich, very nutrient rich, and we will use this, like I said, in our compost tea. If you take something away from this class, I would recommend the worms definitely. If you're not going to purchase new soil this year, especially, I would get some worms. Red wigglers are great. The night crawlers are great as well, but the red wigglers are going to help with the top layer and helping with your amendments. Um, Uncle Jim's Worm Farm is the name of the worm farm. So, again, like my dad said, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. Let us know or stop in. We have a great staff, and everybody's really knowledgeable and able to help you out with your soil selections. And I think that you'll be very happy with your selection or your outcome this year if you're gardening, based on whether or not you get some new soils or not. And I think once you try some nice soil, not just cheap soil from the store, then I think that you'll have great success. And then every year you'll probably want to keep on with some great soils. So thank you very much for tuning in. And we hope you guys have a great spring. And if you have some ideas for our next class, we don't have any set up at the moment. So leave a comment or shoot us an email with something that you'd like to know about, whether it's pruning or transplanting, or houseplants or orchids. We have great resources to be able to add some more content to this channel so that you're able to grow as a gardener and enjoy yourself and have some network of people to rely on and ask questions to. So thank you guys very much. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.